Welcome to the Problematic Podcast, where I interview leaders who are solving important problems and helping improve people's lives. Tune in every week to hear from a visionary business leader. And now, here's Kevin Forshey. Okay, Kevin. So, who are you and what problem are you solving?
So my name is Kevin Forshey. I'm the founder, president, CTO, and I guess software architect, basically. Primary geek hidden away in the closet at MyndTek Limited, where our mission statement is to help prevent those we love from choosing to leave us too early. Basically, what that boils down to is we use software that analyzes user provided data to help those users manage their mental health and even be able to give users a preview of their mental health days in advance. So, like, we're able to use users' data in order to basically, predict mental health issues, even like suicide risk before they occur. And
Really?
yeah,
That's
and
really
yeah,
cool. Could you explain that a little bit more, how they predict that?
yeah. So we get users' physical health data from Garmin-based wearable devices like this right here that I'm wearing, and then in our app we actually just have users like log like different symptoms and other mental health related data on a daily basis, and then I created this proprietary algorithm on the back end that analyzes how all of those different data points are related and how, like, if there's a positive hit on this one data point on one day and then another one like the day before, how those are affected going into the future. And also it takes into it, we look at basically, I think we're right at about 100 data points on a daily basis in order to develop all these relationships and be able to use that as sort of forecasting. And so far we're doing preliminary testing on the algorithm with real live data, and right now we're at averaging about 95 to 97% accuracy in our predictions. So there's still a little bit of work to go on that, but yeah, hoping to have that
That's,
live within the next couple of months.
that's really cool. So, what actually inspired you to start this business?
Oh gosh, that's quite the story. Well, to start off, I actually died when I was in high school due to a severe traumatic brain injury. Died on operating table, and that caused some mental health issues uh, in myself because of the different ways that my brain was injured at that time. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm gonna say 2011 or maybe 2013, somewhere around that time frame. And then in 2017, I was actually hospitalized after a plan/attempt to commit suicide, and I was then incorrectly diagnosed with bipolar disorder while going through some outpatient treatment. I was in this group, and we all had to basically wait to have like a professional assigned to our case in order to set up a treatment plan. And along that, I saw several people actually lose their life to their mental health. Basically, they're committing suicide because they weren't able to get treatment fast enough. And about that same time, I actually got a Fitbit, a wearable device, as a gift from my uh, mom. And my therapist I was seeing at the time had actually given me a whole bunch of symptoms that I needed to sort of track on a daily basis. And so I started recognizing patterns, and being a software engineer, I was like, I can probably automate this. And so, yeah, I started kind of working on doing some prototypes on how to automate that, and eventually it grew into our uh, software as a service application called data driven therapy, which basically I don't we don't want ever intend it to, like, I'll say, override like therapist or psychiatric care, but we see it as being sort of a very valuable additional tool in order to look at mental health holistically. So
Okay. So, what advice would you give to other people who are or who are going through problems like suicide or mental health issues?
I would say, beyond anything, reach out to probably, I would say, the people who are closest to you, the people who you have the least amount of, I guess, fear of rejection or anything like that. Like
Okay.
if you're married, obviously a spouse would be the first person to go to. Parents are always good. I mean, anyone who's going to understand that, for lack of better words, sometimes you just go through crap and just need help going through it. It's like, because the way I see it, none of us were ever meant to go through life alone. And I believe it was Brene Brown that has this awesome talk. It's called something like The Power of Vulnerability. And if you can be vulnerable and open up with these people that you trust, that puts real power
Okay.
to actually find healing and get the help
Okay.
that you need.
Perfect. So, how did you actually get through those struggles in your own personal life?
For me, that's actually a really good question. I would say the biggest thing for me is probably a combination of my strong faith in God and my my desire to always be, I'll say, transparent with other people, to always be myself with other people, and not be afraid to share some of my struggles with the people who are closest to me.
Okay. So, a little bit of humility and faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, how big of a problem do you think suicide is in America and the world?
Well, just alone in the United States, mental health. Oh, one in every five people, roughly 20%, well, exactly 20% statistically, they say has a suffering from a diagnosable and, most importantly, treatable mental health condition, but they don't seek the care for that, because there's a lot of issues within the way the mental health care system works. A lot of insurance issues, a ton of red tape, and yeah. Anyway, I said it was affecting about 20% of the population, which comes out to about 67,200,000 people, roughly,
Wow.
just in this country alone, that could use some help with their mental health.
So, what do you think actually leads to mental health issues?
Hmm. That I I should put it out there that I'm actually not a doctor, but in my personal opinion, I would say that it's a combination of pretty much, uh, what I would say. Okay, this is a good kind of how I look at it. I look at health holistically as sort of a triangle. You've got your physical health, you've got your mental health, and then I think that you've got your spiritual health. Even if you're not a spiritual person, there's still some aspect that's involved in there. And when any one of those parts of it, that triangle, get out of alignment, then you're going to find issues in other areas of your life. So I think that the the best way to look at mental health is to look at it in sort of that triangle frame of mind, where you've got to keep an eye on all aspects of your health in order to sort of optimize yourself.
Okay, sure. So, what specific procedures or things do you have your clients do when there's a red flag in their data?
When I see a red flag, usually I have them speak with an actual, like, talk to their therapist or other advisor who's been guiding them in their treatment process, because that's not exactly my specialty. My specialty is more in data and putting meaning to this data and providing tools in order to sort of visualize and easily see how all of my users' data is related. So I'm always a big proponent of even if it's like telehealth, there's things like BetterHelp, or I even recommend people to seek a spiritual advisor in whatever faith that they have, or even just simply talking to someone that they love and trust. But big thing is reaching out to other people. I think that uh, mental health therapy is a huge kind of good default to go to, because I kind of believe that everyone should be involved in mental health, should be receiving some form of mental health therapy, whether it's just talking to a professional once a month or seeing someone more regularly than that.
Okay, so how does the therapy system look like in America? Like, is it okay? Is it good or is it bad?
I would say that problem with mental health treatment that I see most is that obviously most forms of healthcare have advanced greatly with technology, but a lot of what we're doing for mental health care hasn't really changed that much in the past 100 years or so. And like, I mean, we've got all this awesome stuff. Like, we don't use there's not much for technology that's being used in diagnosis and treatment, and there's no real way to measure concretely how patients are doing. It's just, oh, I feel a little bit better, or I feel okay. But for someone who feels almost suicidal every single day, feeling a little bit better is still not good enough. We need more hard concrete data, and that's where I think the failure in mental health treatment lies right now. And if I can at least start to get the ball rolling on that a little bit more, just by using things that I'm gifted and talented in, which is software engineering, and putting meaning to data, then I'm going to work my best at doing that.
That's really cool. So, in the software part of things, what's your biggest takeaway from working in the software field for most of your career?
That I would say, own your mistakes. Don't be afraid to admit your mistakes to other people and then learn from them. I've got a really good story for that if we have time for that. Uh,
Yeah, go
I
go
was
for it.
I was working as a system administrator at a law office down in South Carolina, and I just started there, and we needed to clean up some code, so I just made a couple quick changes to some SQL stored procedures, and we went live with it. It seemed like it was working okay. A couple months later, all of the billing was off, so we had to withhold distributing $2 million in shares to shareholders because our
Mm,
billing was off and we couldn't determine what was exactly right. So, in a meeting with all the bigwigs, including the CTO that was overseeing all of technology, we talked about it. And I actually stood up in the meeting and I said, you know what? I'm going to own this. This is my fault. I released this code. And what I've learned from it is that we didn't have proper, I'll say, code validation processes in place. So I worked with all the managers, and we put in better processes for making sure that code was functioning as we thought it was going to. And then the CTO ended up saying to me that because I owned up to my mistake and we learned from it and implemented the changes, I got to keep my job. So even though I made a $2 million mistake, because I owned up to it and learned from it, I was able to keep my job. So
wow, that's crazy. So, how do you get yourself to own up to a mistake like that? Because that's a big deal.
I guess to me that kind of goes along with a lot of the mental health stuff. It's just realizing that not not everyone is perfect. We all make mistakes, and we do have to ask for help sometimes. Sometimes you have to ask for help after you realize that the mistake has been there. And I mean, it's like you just kind of have to realize that, yeah, like I said, everyone makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and if we all work together, we can get through this life together.
Yeah, that's a really good viewpoint. Okay, so you filled us in a little bit on your backstory, but could you fill us in a little bit more, like on the business side of things, maybe a little bit mixed with personal, and just tell us how your life has gone?
Sure. So I originally started in software. I went to school at DePaul University in Chicago. Believe it or not, I went for computer game development. But at the time that I was about to graduate, my wife and I had a baby on the way, and all the game developers that I knew were working multiple jobs. And I had originally gone to school because I wanted to create a Christian game development company. And going back to the time I was about to graduate, I had a solid job offer in web development at kind of a really cool software company that made legal software in Chicago. And so I was like, I'm just gonna work here so that I have more family time, you know. And so then I just
Okay.
kind of moved around the country a bit and kept kind of going down that path in the web development world. Mostly using Microsoft-based technologies, in addition to some other stuff like SAP, some Python, JavaScript. Yeah, the technologies I worked on is kind of boring, but so yeah, I worked in like different industries. I've worked in like legal, financial services, even did some government contracting. I could tell you about that, but then I'd have to kill you, and if I didn't, they'd kill both of us. So let's just say, yeah, I can't talk too much about that. But anyway, yeah, let's see. So I finished school in, I'm going to say 2013. So in 2019, I actually really started working on MyndTek and data-driven therapy. At the time, I was thinking I was just going to call the software MyndHack, but as I was working through prototyping, it just made more sense to change the name of it to data-driven therapy. And then in I'm going to say 2021, I actually got involved with Startup Sioux Falls. I went through I think it was their second cohort going through the Co-Starters program, which was good for helping general businesses get up and running. But Co-Starters has some kind of, the program sort of, I felt like had some shortcomings when it comes to, I'll say, something as specific as software, where it doesn't necessarily follow the traditional business model. And so, yeah, I had to sort of adapt quite a bit to that. Through that, I got in touch with Don Feige, who owned Five Star LLC at the time. And yeah, I got to know him. And in the meantime, I kind of kept working on data driven therapy and uh, got used to, got a little bit more experience pitching it to people and stuff. Then Don actually asked me last October if I would be part of Startup Sioux Falls' first software specific cohort. And so, yeah, I got a lot of, that was an amazing experience. I'd recommend anyone who's doing a technology business to go through that. I got a lot of really great contacts. And after working on that, while working through that, I got data driven therapy to a point where I could start bringing on a limited number of users. And I did that sort of to get more user feedback and sort of work out any bugs that I had in the application. And so, yeah, now we've got a fair number of users, and we're to the point now where we're ready to start bringing on additional users. I'd like to get up to at least 100 users by the end of this year. And yeah,
Really?
yeah,
That's really cool.
So I'd said I'd originally started working with Fitbit devices, but this is kind of interesting. In the meantime, after I'd started working with Fitbit devices there, Google went through and bought Fitbit and changed the developer license terms to basically say that they could copy any software that uh, was built using the Fitbit SDK. So I had to make a tough decision to pivot away from Fitbit devices,
Mhm.
which there's a lot more Fitbit devices are everywhere. And then I did some research and ended up moving to Garmin-based devices because they're extremely developer-friendly. And doing some research, I found that their devices are actually a lot more accurate as far as like the type of data that I'm collecting, more accurate than like Fitbit or Apple devices, and they're also a lot more privacy friendly, which obviously in healthcare is a big deal these days.
So, where do you see your business in like 10 years from now?
10 years, that's a really good question. Hold on just a second, I need a second. What I would say is I want to see data driven therapy changing the lives and in turn family trees of as many people as possible by preventing suicides and helping people to take control of their mental health just simply by doing things that they're already doing and looking at the data and seeing how that's affected. And I guess my primary goal is to make as big of a dent on the world through impacting people's lives as possible. And from a business standpoint, I would like to see data driven therapy eventually become sort of the de facto tool that mental health care providers are using to um, help guide the mental health treatment process. Like, I guess the eventual goal would be to basically have people download the application. We get some enough user data, enough data on the per user, uh, per each user that signs up to be able to see if there's a diagnosis or not, and then basically notify the user that we could potentially have a diagnosis for you. Here's a list of doctors in your area that are using the data driven therapy system. Do you want us to send your data over there and get an appointment set up
Okay.
for you? So, I mean, just kind of like basically that really cuts down on the whole treatment time because no longer do providers have to spend weeks and weeks and weeks trying to figure out what's going on. They've got all that data right there that says concretely what's going on. So that's
Okay.
going to be helpful
That's really
for
cool.
everyone.
So, do you want to make a dent on the world in mental health or just more things in general?
My primary goal was to basically make a dent in mental health. That's kind of where it started out. But as my users are finding more and more, I'll say, emergent use cases for my application uh, through just looking at the data and seeing how they can apply that, I see kind of just wanting to make a dent in people's lives through showing them how to view their health holistically and make these positive changes in their life without having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month on medication. Like
That's
I have one user that I'm saving them over $500 a month because they no longer need their medications that they were on when they started with data driven therapy.
wow. That's crazy. Do you have any more success stories of any of your patients?
Yes, I do. I'm going to call this person Lisa because that's fake name because obviously I'm big on security. Um, this user had actually had a concussion a few months before they started using data-driven therapy, and she actually told me that there were some symptoms from her concussion, like debilitating headaches and lack of energy, that type of thing. And so I added those as data points that users are able to track in the application. And in the meantime, her psychiatrist had told her, "Well, you just need more sleep. You need more sleep. You need more sleep." So uh, it got to the point where she was sleeping like 14 hours a day regularly,
Wow.
but because of the data that data driven therapy was providing her with and the way that everything looked, she was able to take print out of the hard data into her psychiatrist, and he basically said, "Oh, it's not the amount of sleep that's the issue here. It looks like it's a quality of sleep." So he made one quick change to her medication, and in a matter of days, her life was back to how it was before the concussion.
Wow.
So it
That's
had a
awesome.
pretty immediate impact on her life just by simply providing the data to the people who to her health primary health her
So
psychiatrist.
that was your data from your company that she saw?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
So
That's
like I
awesome.
was a lot of the data that I track is actually sleep related, and actually also like things like heart rates, different ways that's affected, and also activities like walking, that type of stuff.
Okay.
And because they could look at we we noticed there was a relationship between headaches and other symptoms with a lack of REM and deep sleep cycles, and because that was so clearly evident, the doctor was able to make one simple change and clear all that up. So
That's awesome. So is the lack of sleep or the lack of quality of sleep, is that a big deal in what causes mental health?
it can be, yes. I mean, those the sleep requirements differ, like aren't always the same for every single person, but it's important that your body gets enough deep deep REM and light gets e- enough deep REM and sleep cycle every single night, because that's basically how your body recharges itself and heals itself at night. It's basically almost like, if you think about it, maybe like I'm just creating this analogy on the fly, so it might be way wrong, but almost think about it like a rechargeable battery. If you don't, like, I know some you're supposed to let run all the way out and then you charge it all the way back up, and others you aren't supposed to. It's kind of like everyone sort of recharges a different way. And that's where I think there's a huge advantage of using data driven therapy, because it gives you data specifically on on a user, whereas a lot of psychiatrists, I ran into this when pitching once, a lot of psychiatrists and other mental health care professionals like to sort of group everyone into these uh, large data groups, like teenagers that are males that have, like, I don't know, that are this race or that race, or live in this live in this area, all that type of stuff, and then they kind of try to sort of average all that data out. And I actually feel that each individual person is special enough that you're not going to get specific enough treatment if you're just looking at that. And that's, I think, where the real beauty in data driven therapy actually lies. That we can look at each person, you can look at each person individually and make decisions based on their data.
That's really cool what you're doing with it. So, are there any
Well, thank you.
misconceptions that frustrate you in the mental health field?
Oh my gosh, I'm always so frustrated with those misconceptions. I think that the biggest thing to me is that a lot of people see mental health issues as this huge disability, when really a lot of times it's sort of like an imbalance of things. Like, I've got one user who's going through we're doing a study on them. They're integrating with a pretty strict physical training, personal training program, and that user actually happened to have pretty bad ADHD, and their symptoms were kind of all over the place. And just by monitoring that data, we were able to actually sort of um, see how everything was affected, and they ended up getting rid of most of their mental health medications. And that was, I guess, coming back to the question. Um, I guess that's sort of provides proof that mental health issue in that case was not necessarily that a big disability. It was just that there was an imbalance there, and once they found that balance, most of that user's symptoms just kind of went away and
Okay.
totally
So,
changed their life.
bad mental health can be, or is, or can be caused just by an imbalance in your life?
I would say so, yes. I mean, that's not every case. I mean, obviously, sometimes there's chemical imbalances in your brain, like ADHD or ADD, is a lot of times caused by your body, for whatever reason, not being able to produce appropriate amounts of dopamine. And so
Okay. How much of bad mental health is hereditary?
I would say that can actually vary. I'm not a doctor, so my opinion on that, I would say, is speculation, but I would say some conditions are more likely to be hereditary than others. Like, I kind of like to look at it like you're more susceptible to symptoms of a certain condition. I kind of hate that. I'm not really a big fan of the whole diagnosis thing, because it's like when you get in the diagnosis thing, you're like, oh, I'm just going to stick this label on you and that's how we're going to look at you. Whereas it's like, you've got these, I look at it more like you've got these certain symptoms, which once you're aware of them and what could potentially be causing them, there's potential to uh, change the data uh, by certain actions and to sort of alleviate those symptoms. So some things like depression, I think that would be is something that could be very hereditary. I guess susceptibility to those symptoms, and then of course you also have to take into account life events like bullying, that type of stuff that could obviously make you more susceptible. Things like PTSD, going through trauma, all that sort of stuff. So I guess in a roundabout way, I would say it's hard to put an exact number on how much of that is hereditary, but I would say that genetics can make you more susceptible to certain symptoms, and if you know the data to watch for, and what data causes some of those symptoms. Like for me myself, if I sleep too much, I notice that like my depression symptoms can go like way up. Whereas like I would say like with me, depression symptoms can go up with certain things like uh, too much sleep or not enough activity. So I know that if I can get the right amount of sleep, not too much, not too little, and get enough activity, not too much, not too little, then those symptoms are actually going to be dissipating some.
So, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
That's kind of a good question. I would say, kind of referring back to my answer about one of the best things that I learned about, one of the things I learned about software engineering, it's never be afraid to own your own mistakes, but most importantly, learn from those mistakes, because then if you make a mistake, you can look at it as a learning opportunity and become a better and grow from it. And if you're not making mistakes and forcing yourself to grow, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. It's kind of like that old adage in software: if you never take out the production system, you're not trying hard enough. So
Right.
so yeah, I'd say big thing is learning from mistakes and embracing failure is probably the biggest thing. I know it's kind of cliche, but
Right. So, learn from your mistakes and your failures.
yes.
Just keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, how can listeners get involved and support you and your business?
This is the biggest thing that I need help with. I guess not a lot of people know about MyndTek and what we're working on yet. So the biggest thing will be following us on social media. The platform that we're biggest on right now is Facebook. So you can just look us up, MyndTek. That's MyndTek on Facebook. And also, if anyone sends us an email and says that they've listened to this podcast, we'll actually give them a 10% discount off of a Garmin device that's compatible with data driven therapy, and give them a 6-month trial subscription. So I guess that's a big thing. Go ahead and going to our website, datadriventherapy.net, signing up, and then send us an email and we'll get you set up with a 6-month trial. And yeah,
Okay.
we're very good at implementing user feedback. So if you, I mean, you get a out of that package, you get garment at less than suggested retail price. And if you see anything you like in data driven therapy or you have any ideas, you can always submit it to us, and we'll work hard on getting that released out for you as soon as possible. When I have users request features, they're usually out within a week or two. So
Really? Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
oh, you're
I
welcome.
really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share about my MyndTek and